It would be surprising if a small homogeneous village in Iceland were paralyzed politically to the point of being unable to manage public resources. However, a large heterogeneous country such as the United States faces far more difficult problems in managing public resources. One solution is to reduce public ownership by selling federally owned land. The market value of the products yielded by lands in the American West would surely be higher if the land currently under public control were transferred to private control. This argument, however, is unlikely to persuade those who want to see the wilderness underutilized. Most ecologists believe that public land should not be managed with the aim of maximizing the market value that it yields. Everyone tends to think that some things are more valuable than wealth, at least at the margin, such as liberty or truth. For some people, wilderness is such a value. People who love liberty will never decide whether persons have the right to speak by asking whether people would pay more to hear them or to shut them up. Similarly, those who love the wilderness would never decide whether to build condominiums on the nesting site of the California condors by asking whether developers would pay more for the land than would the ecologists. Ecologists usually oppose the sale of public lands to private interests because their aim is to limit development rather than to increase yield. Given the scope of disagreement between ecologists and developers, it seems certain that vast resources will be used up in political disputes over the governance of public lands in the western United States. Question 5.14. Cooperative enterprises are collectively owned, and their affairs are directed through shared governance. Use the preceding theory to discuss the management of some cooperative enterprises with which you are familiar, such as a cooperative dairy, a cooperative apartment building, an Israeli kibbutz, a Hutterite farm, a commune, and so on. Now to go back and read the section Commons and Anti-Commons. Instead of a tragedy of the commons, to break up the Soviet Union in the early 1990s exposed the symmetrically opposite problem of property rights. See superscript 28, which reads, see Michael Heller, The Tragedy of the Anti-Commons, Property and the Transition from Marx to Market, 111 Harvard Law Review, 621, 1998, returning to the text. Rather than too few property interests, the problem, the commons, there were too many property interests. How did this come to be? Private property interests were largely unknown during the 70 years of communist rule, and people came to have ownership claims to resources in idiosyncratic ways. So, for example, a large apartment with many rooms, which had been privately owned before the 1917 revolution, had come to be home to several different families. Each family might occupy one of the rooms in the apartment and share the use of the kitchen and the bathroom. When communism ended, these families thought that they had continuing ownership claims to their individual rooms and the common spaces.